What is up? It is Stu and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be super fun because look at this before. We have got a natural redhead here, and what we're going to be doing is almost like a reverse balayage, and we're going to even make her red a little bit more vibrant and a little bit deeper. So if you're interested in watching this, stay tuned. Okay, so you've seen my clients before, and here's her goal picture. Taking a closer look at it, you can see that it's almost like a brunette got a balayage, and then they toned her lighter pieces that they highlighted with some really vibrant red tones. So starting off, what we're going to be doing is we're going to have to deepen everything up at her base. So I'm mixing up a root color. I am using JESSI, and I'm going to be using 40 mLs of 10 volume and 4N. I love mixing 10 volume with my JESSI because it's going to give it a lot more longevity than it would usually with the processing solution. So doing this is just going to ensure longevity. I don't want to use anything permanent just in case she wants to change it up or try to go back to her natural color or anything like that. So this is what we're going to be using to richen up her base, doing that almost like a retouch, which I'll show you a little bit later. Next, we're going to be mixing up a low light formula because we're basically going to be having to do a reverse balayage on her. And we're also going to be having to mix up a low light formula so we can add in those little pops of depth. So what I'm going to be doing is 4N, it's going to match the base color, and then also a little bit of 4NB. The reason I'm adding 4NB is because I wanted to richen it up almost a little bit and almost make it more of like a warmer brown. Then what I'm going to be doing, you can see here, is I'm going through and I'm actually labeling what is what, just so I stay organized and don't end up mixing up the two formulas that we're using. Starting off, I have her sectioned into 4 quadrants. This is so I can go in and do my root retouch. What I'm going to start off by doing before I apply the color is going in with frumhere's Dye Defender. All this is a barrier cream so her skin doesn't get stained and she doesn't have like all those little dark circles where it almost looks like she has a helmet on the hairline. And then we can go ahead and get into our root retouch. As far as our root retouch goes, it's going to be pretty simple, you guys. All I'm going to be doing is dragging it down about 1 inch and then going through with thin sections, applying the same color. The reason I'm using 4N is because the picture that she showed me in her goal, which I showed you a little bit earlier in the video, it is super dark, rich root. So I'm going to be going through to match that with a 4N. The good thing about her hair being red today is I don't have to worry about filling it. If redheads are kind of a little bit more complicated, I feel like they can stress you out a little bit more whenever you are having to formulate or whatnot. But usually what I would do if someone's hair was this light is have to go in and fill, but I don't have to worry about it with a redhead today. The reason I don't have to worry about it is because obviously she is a redhead, so she has those red tones in there, which is everything with a level 5 and 6 below, but her hair is almost like a warm shade of red. If you could look closely, or you could definitely see it in person, it's almost like she had this gold tone to her hair. So since her hair is red with a gold tone, I don't have to go in and add any yellow or orange or red. And by no means is that always the case whenever it comes to toning down or coloring a redhead a darker color. That is just my client's hair right now. So sometimes I will go in and fill. I'll always will go in and fill on blonde hair. And if you wanted to know a little bit more about filling hair, I do have a video of taking a blonde to a brunette on my channel, so go ahead and check that one out because it goes over filling so much. As far as my application goes, I'll go a little bit more in depth here. Like I said, I'm just going to be applying this like a root retouch. So what I'm going to be going through is I have her in those 4 quadrants. I feel like the key to having the perfect root retouch or the perfect root is to ensure that you don't miss anything. You need to have clean sections. So I have her divided into 4 quadrants. That's what I like to do. And then I also have her hairline left out just so she has a little bit of a pop piece up front. As you can see here, I'm not going to be dragging that down 1 inch. That's going to be dragged down about 1/2 inch. But what I'm going to be doing is taking small sections, going through and making sure I really saturate, and then even at the end what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking the JESSI Styles multi-use brush, going through and blending that root down just so it blends in with the red color we're going to be adding and then also the low lights. And the reason I'm leaving this area in the front out is just to make sure that I don't drag it down too far. Most balayages or any kind of lived-in look, they always have a brighter piece in the front, so to ensure that I have that, I'm not going to be rooting it down quite as far, just 1/2 inch like I was saying compared to 1 inch like everywhere else. And then also I'm going to make sure that I don't add any low lights in this area. Now that her root is applied, I'm going to be going in and adding in my low light. So I'm switching my formula, remember, to the 4N and 4NB compared to the 4N that is just on her root. And what I'm going to be doing is more of a textural highlight, something that's a little bit more thicker than I usually do. And the reason I'm wanting to be doing that is because I'm adding in contrast. Whenever it comes to adding in contrast, those ribbons aren't as fine as a baby light. And even though I am such a huge fan of baby lights, I want to make sure that those contrasted pieces actually pop and show up and make a difference. So what I'm going to be doing is taking that section, weaving it a little bit chunkier and a little bit heavier where it's a little bit more dense than I usually do, and then going in and saturating everything. And for my foil placement for this, what I'm going to be doing is a brick clay pattern. And the reason I love brick clay patterns whenever it's adding any kind of depth or anything into someone's hair is because I feel like it just goes a little bit more natural. So I'm doing one foil here at the bottom, so then my next section I'm going to be doing two. So I'm taking this section, splitting it in two, and then I'll do a textural highlight on the left and then also the right, continuing that same pattern. And I feel like patterns like this, whenever it comes to bricklaying, anytime adding in depth, it is honestly my favorite way to do it. Bricklay patterns are offset patterns, so having 2, 1, 2, 1 in opposite directions is going to help this not be so uniformed. Usually what I would do whenever I'm folding the back is have 2 sections at the bottom. I would have like a square or an upside down triangle, but if I went in that way, I feel like it's almost too uniformed. And what I mean by that, guys, is that I really want to make sure that it's almost beachy, really lived in. If you think about someone who goes to the beach, is really sun-kissed around their hairline because that's where the sun is seen, and all the depth is on the interior of their hair. So I want to create that same effect. Even though she's not getting it from the beach, we can utilize our foil placement and everything that we're doing today to color her hair to get that same result. Something you'll see me doing here is something that I don't do a ton, and that is folding in the sides of every single foil. The reason I'm doing that is because we are going to be coloring her dropout, so they are going to be bounced around, kind of tugged at, played with a little bit more than they usually would be doing. So since I'm coloring in those dropouts, I want to make sure that my low lights don't slip or anything like that. So I want to make sure that I'm keeping those super secure. So I'm going through double locking my foils and then also folding them in on the sides to ensure that they just don't slip, and nothing can happen like that to where my formulas can either blend or touch or the darker pieces get on the dropouts, yada yada, you get what I'm saying. As I'm moving up the back of the head, I'm going to be going a little bit thinner and thinner with my low lights. I know I was saying I want a thicker highlight. I want something that's a little bit more bold and chunkier in a way. Referring back to what I was saying about the sun-kissed look, it's going to be lighter up top. All the depth is in the interior of her hair. So as I'm moving up, I'm going a little bit finer on my sections, still keeping them pretty textural, but for the most part, they are going to be a little bit thinner as far as my density goes. And then after this last low light at the top, I'm going to be having a small section, which is almost going to be like a little halo or a little veil that's going to be over that I'm not going to low light. Since we're coloring her dropouts with the vibrant red color, I want to make sure that that's more of the dominant tone up top. So this is just going to help marry everything together with those ribbons, where it's not going to be the darker highlights. It's going to be that vibrant red color that we go in and add a little bit later. That's going to be the dominant tone up top whenever her hair is down. Continuing to the front of her hairline, like I said before, I'm going to be doing the same exact pattern. I'm just going to be doing a few low lights up here, not as many as the back, just because I want the front to be a little bit brighter, of course, and then also making sure that I avoid that little area up top, the little box that I smudged down a little bit less. I want to make sure that that stays that vibrant red color. Everything else can go ahead and get low lighted. As I'm moving to the front, something I am going to be switching up a little bit is just making sure that my sectionings are on a slight diagonal, and as I'm moving up past the curvature of her head, they're going to be a little bit more horizontal. So the reason I'm doing that is because the slight diagonal works a little bit better with the head shape. We all know that everyone's head is round, so working with the curvature of her head, just placing my foil like that so everything lays super natural. The rule of thumb whenever it comes to weaving anything is the closer you are to the scalp, the finer your weave is going to be, and then the more you're in the mid shaft area, the more texture or thicker that your weave is going to be. Even though I'm going close to their scalp to weave, I want you guys to pay attention to that I'm still digging a lot, and if I'm not, I'm going through like this where I'll carve out a little bit more of each weave. This is just going to ensure that I do have those pops. It is the density that I want it to be, so whenever I go through a low light, I'm still getting those nice ribbons that I want. It's also saving me a little bit of time. Instead of going through and completely reweaving until everything's perfectly, I'll just dig out what I want and then keep going. We're going to be doing about one more highlight on this side and then continuing the same pattern on the other side, and then we can go ahead and get into mixing whenever it comes to our dropout formula, and that's when the red part comes in. And I'm excited to do that for you guys today because I feel like reds can kind of be a little bit confusing because you don't really learn a lot about reds in school, and then also you don't really have a lot of red hair clients. I feel like red hair is kind of like the minority of hair that we get to color, so it's really fun whenever someone comes in wanting red or doing a red tutorial, so I'm excited to show you guys that. So like I said, we're continuing that pattern on the same side, making sure that I don't touch the front, and then also leaving a little veil or halo off the top just so those vibrant red tones really show. So her low light and root is processing. We can go ahead and get into that dropout formula like I was talking about. What we're going to be using is a concoction of things, and I'm also going to be mixing that with 10 volume. So first thing we're going to be adding in is 7CB, 7cc, 6R, 6RB, 6AA, and 6CR. What these are going to be doing is basically reds are the hardest to lift out of hair, but they fade the easiest. So what we're going to be doing is coloring her dropouts like I said, but whenever I'm formulating for this, I want to make sure that I'm adding in tons of red tones. The reason I like to do this is just to make sure that the formula is jam-packed with red tones, just to ensure longevity in her hair. And you'll see Piper here going through coloring those dropouts as promised. So what she's basically doing is treating this like it's an all-over color. So she's going through making sure she gets in between the foils, the mids, everything that's on the ends, saturating really well, and she'll go through with a brush and brush it out just to make sure that everything is nice and saturated. So as she's applying this, I thought we could break down our formula a little bit more and they tell you exactly what I'm using. The 7CB is a copper brown, the 7cc is a double copper, the 6R is a 6 red, the 6RB is a 6 red brown, and then the 6AA is papaya. All the AAs are my favorite reds and shades, and then the 6CR is a 6 copper red. And I know that seems like a lot, that is a super complicated concoctions, but whenever it comes to red, like I was saying, I just want to ensure that the red actually lasts. It doesn't wash out, so I'm going through jam packing it with red tones. A good way to test out your red formula or any kind of like fashion color in a sense, something that I like to do is actually taking a paper towel and doing a little swatch of your formula on it. After it's sat for literally 10 seconds, you're going to be able to tell the tone that it's actually going to be. So I actually did do that and I was pleased with it. So I'm going through adding this everywhere, and then we're going to let her process for about 25 minutes. The rule of thumb with Shades EQ is 1 minute equals 1 wash. So she's going to be getting about 25 washes out of this since we're letting her process for 25 minutes. Something that's super nice about this process is that we added in our root, our low light, and then also our all over tone. So all we have to do is wash and rinse her. Something that I always say is to make sure that you, whenever you do like an all over color or anything on the scalp, is to make sure that you're really getting in there, working on the root, washing it. And then also whenever you're doing any kind of vibrant color, make sure you're rinsing it the first time with cool water, and then you can kind of move it up to lukewarm water. I don't want it to wash out from the hot water or bleed together at first. So Piper's going to be going through washing her once, conditioning her once, and then we're going to be wrapping up everything by just doing a little towel dry, and then we're going to wrap her up in a cute turban. I feel like I hate seeing whenever someone's walking through the salon. I know my clients don't want to walk through a salon whenever they have wet hair. We always wrap them up in a turban, send them back to the chair. All we have to do is blow dry and style her now. So I'm giving you one last look at her before, and then wham, here is her after. You guys, I am so excited about how this turned out. It literally looks just like the picture. I am obsessed with this. I know reds can be scary, so I wanted to make this video. I was a little scared doing it just because reds are scary, so I hope you learned a little bit of something. So now all there is to do is take a few after pictures. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like this video down below, and especially subscribe to my channel. I have so much fun hair education that's just going to be free here on YouTube coming soon, and I will catch you in the next one.